please, I need $5,000 for my daughter's leg.
I don't care.
But she needs it, please.
I stare at the doctor's mouth, watching her lips form words that feel like they're coming through water. My daughter, my Lily, sits on the examination table with her leg elevated, eyes wide and too brave for a 9-year-old. The swelling has turned her ankle into something unrecognizable, purple-black like storm clouds gathering under skin. Mrs. Chen, the doctor says, and I hate that she uses my married name, even though I've been divorced for 3 years. The fracture didn't heal correctly. There's significant displacement, and with the swelling pattern we're seeing, I'm concerned about compartment syndrome. If we don't intervene surgically within the next 48 hours, we're looking at potential permanent impairment. Permanent impairment. The words hang in the sterile air like a verdict. Lily's hand finds mine, small and cold. She squeezes once, our signal, the one we developed after her father left. The silent language of just us against the world. I squeeze back twice. You're safe. I've got you. But I don't, not really. Not without $5,000 I don't have. The doctor is still talking, her voice professionally sympathetic, explaining about the deposit required before they can schedule the OR, about the window of opportunity closing, about how children's bones heal differently than adults, but only if you catch them in time. I nod at the right moments, sign the papers she slides across the desk, accept the financial counselor's card with a smile that probably looks more like a grimace. In the parking lot, under fluorescent lights that turn everything the color of old bruises, I help Lily into the car. She doesn't complain even though I know every movement hurts. She's learned not to expect comfort, my brave girl. Learned it from me, probably, from watching me navigate a divorce and 2 jobs, and a life that never quite had enough breathing room for pain. Mom, her voice is small. Am I going to be okay? I want to lie. I want to tell her yes, absolutely, without question. Instead, I brush her hair back from her forehead, damp with the sweat of holding back tears, and I say, I'm going to make sure you are. It's not quite a lie. It's a promise I don't yet know how to keep. At home, I wait until she's settled on the couch with ice and elevation and her favorite show playing at low volume. Then I go into my bedroom, close the door, and stare at my phone like it might spontaneously generate solutions. My parents live 20 minutes away in the house I grew up in, the one they refinanced 5 years ago to add a pool and a guest suite they never use. My mother posts pictures on Facebook of their garden, their weekend trips to wine country, their new patio furniture, arranged just so. My father retired early from his engineering job with a pension that makes my grocery store management salary look like pocket change. I haven't asked them for money since I was 19 and needed help with college textbooks. They said no then, too, told me it would teach me the value of hard work, the importance of standing on my own 2 feet. I worked 3 jobs that semester and nearly failed out anyway from exhaustion. But this isn't about me. This is about Lily's leg, about permanent impairment, about a 9-year-old girl who deserves to run and dance and live without pain because her grandfather wanted a boat more than he wanted to help. I call before I can talk myself out of it. My father answers on the 3rd ring, voice jovial and warm. Sarah, what a nice surprise. Your mother and I were just talking about you. Dad, my throat feels tight. I need to ask you something. Of course, honey. What's going on? I explain about the fall, about the x-rays, about the surgery that needs to happen now or never. I keep my voice level, factual, free of emotion because emotion is weakness in my family, something to be managed and controlled and never, ever indulged. I explain about the deposit, about the timeline, about how I've exhausted every other option. I just need $5,000, I say, and I hate how the words taste like failure. I'll pay you back. I can do $500 a month, maybe more, if I pick up extra shifts. I just need help right now. For Lily. There's a pause. In that pause, I can hear music playing in the background. Jazz, probably, my father's retirement soundtrack. I can hear ice clinking in a glass. I can hear my mother's voice, distant, asking who's on the phone. Sarah, my father says. And his tone has shifted from jovial to something else, something that makes my stomach drop. You know, we'd love to help, but the timing is really bad. We just bought a boat, a beautiful 30-footer, you should see it. And between that and the slip fees and the insurance, we're pretty tapped out right now. I don't speak. I can't. If I open my mouth, something will come out that I can't take back. It's not a good time, he continues, like he's explaining why he can't make it to lunch, why he has to cancel coffee plans. Maybe in a few months when things settle. Dad. My voice sounds strange, too calm, like it's coming from someone else's body. This isn't about a few months. The surgery needs to happen by Friday, or she could have permanent damage to her leg. Permanent. I understand that, but my mother's voice cuts in. She's taken the phone, or he's put me on speaker. Sarah, we're not made of money. You need to learn to plan better, to have savings for emergencies. Maybe this will teach Lily some responsibility, too. A limp would be a reminder to be more careful. The words hit me like a physical blow. A limp will teach her responsibility. My 9-year-old daughter, who fell off the monkey bars at school, whose only crime was being a child who likes to play, deserves to walk with pain for the rest of her life because it will teach her to be more careful. You're right, I hear myself say. This will definitely teach someone a lesson. I hang up before they can respond. For a long moment, I sit in the silence of my bedroom, staring at the phone in my hand. My parents, who took a cruise to Alaska last summer, who renovated their kitchen with marble countertops, who just bought a boat, a 30-footer. Beautiful. You should see it. Have decided that my daughter's ability to walk without pain is worth less than their new toy. There's no rage yet, just a clarity so sharp it feels like ice water in my veins. I try my sister next because I'm still operating on autopilot, still checking boxes on a list of people who should care. Jessica lives in the same town, works as a real estate agent, drives a car that costs more than I make in a year. We used to be close, before she married someone who considers my life unfortunate life choices, and before she started agreeing with him. She picks up on the first ring, chipper. Hey, what's up? I explain again. Shorter this time. More direct. Jessica laughs. Actually laughs. Oh, Sarah, she'll manage. She always does, right? Kids are resilient, and honestly, maybe Mom has a point about responsibility. You can't just expect people to bail you out every time something goes wrong. I'm not asking to be bailed out, I say, and my voice is still that strange, calm thing. I'm asking for help with my daughter's medical emergency. Potato. Potato. I can hear her shrug through the phone. Look, I've got a showing in 10 minutes. I'm sure you'll figure something out. You always do. She hangs up before I can respond. I sit there holding my phone, and something inside me that was still hoping, still believing in the fundamental goodness of family, finally dies. It doesn't die screaming. It dies quiet, like a light going out. The next few hours are a blur of impossible math. I call the hospital financial aid office. 6-week processing time. I check every credit card I have, all maxed from the divorce, from keeping us afloat these past 3 years. I look into medical loans with interest rates that make my stomach turn. I calculate how much I can pull from my paycheck before we can't make rent. No matter how I run the numbers, they don't work. Lily calls from the living room, asking if we can order pizza. I tell her yes, even though I've got $17 in my checking account until Friday. I'll figure it out. I always do, apparently. That night, I sit next to her on the couch, watching her try to get comfortable with her leg elevated, watching her bite her lip against pain she won't admit to feeling. She's learned to be tough because life hasn't given her another option. Because I haven't given her another option. Mom! She looks up at me with eyes too old for her face. Are you sad? No, baby. I'm just thinking. About my leg? Yeah, about your leg. She's quiet for a moment, then, I'm sorry I fell. And that's when something breaks. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet fracture, like ice cracking under weight it was never meant to bear. You don't apologize for that, I tell her, pulling her close, careful of her injury. Ever. Do you understand me? You're a kid. You're supposed to play and climb and fall and get back up. That's not something to be sorry for. But even as I say it, I'm thinking about my mother's words. A limp will teach her responsibility. I'm thinking about the boat, the 30-footer. Beautiful. You should see it. I'm thinking about how my family has decided that their comfort matters more than my daughter's pain. I don't sleep that night. I sit in the dark with my laptop, researching options I've already researched, looking for miracles in spreadsheets and loan calculators. At 3 in the morning, I'm staring at a GoFundMe tutorial when I hear a knock at the door. For a moment, I think I've imagined it. Who knocks at 3 a.m.? But there it is again. Soft, but persistent. I check through the peephole and see my brother, Marcus, standing on my porch, hands shoved in his pockets, looking exhausted. Marcus, who works at an auto shop, who lives in a studio apartment with furniture salvaged from curbs, who I haven't seen in 3 months because he's been pulling double shifts trying to save up for mechanic school. I open the door. Marcus, what are you? I talked to Mom. He walks past me into the apartment, and I can see the tension in his shoulders, the barely controlled anger in the set of his jaw. She told me about Lily, about the surgery. She told you? I close the door, confused. Why would she? To gloat, I think, about how you came begging and how they had to be tough, because that's what good parents do. He turns to face me, and his eyes are bright with fury. She actually said the boat was more important right now. She actually said that. I don't know what to say. The fact that my mother called Marcus to crow about refusing to help her granddaughter shouldn't surprise me, but somehow it still does. There's always one more level of cruelty you don't expect, one more way to be hurt by the people who should love you most. Where's Lily? Marcus asks. Asleep. Finally. I gesture toward her bedroom. She's trying to be brave about it, but can I see her? We walk quietly to her room. In the dim glow of her nightlight, I can see her curled on her side, her injured leg propped on pillows, her face finally relaxed in sleep. Marcus stands in the doorway for a long moment, just looking. How bad is it? He asks, voice low. The doctor said permanent impairment if we don't do surgery by Friday. Compartment syndrome, nerve damage, maybe chronic pain, maybe a limp. I have to stop, breathe, force down the fear that's been living in my chest since the appointment. I've tried everything, Marcus. I don't know what to do. He's quiet for a long moment. Then he turns and walks back to the living room. I follow, closing Lily's door gently behind me. Marcus stands in my living room, looking around at the second-hand furniture, the worn carpet, the life I've built from scraps and determination. Then he pulls out his wallet and starts counting bills. 20s, 10s, 5s, a thick stack that he lays on my coffee table. That's $800, he says. It's everything I have. I sold my tools, the good set, the Snap-on stuff I've been collecting for 5 years, sold them to Jerry at the shop for cash. I stare at the money like it might bite me. Marcus, no. You need those for school, I need her walking. He cuts me off, and his voice is fierce, final. I need my niece to be able to run and play and not spend her life in pain because our parents decided a boat was more important than her health. So take the money, Sarah. Take it and don't argue. It's not enough. The words come out broken. I need $5,000 for the deposit. $800 won't. It's a start. He sits down on my couch, suddenly looking as exhausted as I feel. And it's something which is more than those assholes gave you. I want to argue. I want to refuse. I want to tell him he can't sacrifice his future for us. But I look at the money, real, tangible, more than I had 5 minutes ago, and I think about Lily's face when she asked if she was going to be okay. I'll pay you back, I say, every penny, I swear. I know you will. He stands, pulls me into a hug that smells like motor oil and Old Spice and safety. You always do. After he leaves, I sit on my couch and stare at the $800. It's not enough to save Lily's leg, but it's enough to know something I should have realized years ago. Blood doesn't make you family. Showing up does. Marcus, who has nothing, gave everything. My parents, who have everything, gave nothing. That clarity I felt earlier sharpens into something else, something cold and patient and absolutely certain. I pick up my phone and start making a list. It starts with small things, facts I've always known but never quite put together. My parents refinanced the house 5 years ago. I remember because my mother complained about the paperwork. But the renovations they did cost maybe $50,000. The refinance was for $200. Where did the rest go? My father's pension, comfortable but not extravagant, somehow funds a lifestyle that includes new cars every 3 years, cruises, a boat, constant renovations. He retired at 60, which means he took early retirement, which means reduced benefits. The math doesn't quite work unless there's money I don't know about. I think about my grandfather, my father's father, who died when I was 12, who owned a hardware store in town for 40 years, who lived modestly and talked often about building something to pass down to family. I think about how my parents suddenly had money for the pool and the kitchen and the Alaska cruise right around the time Grandpa died. I think about how I was in college, struggling, asking for textbook money, and they said no because I needed to learn responsibility. I think about the will reading that I wasn't invited to because I was too young to worry about such things. At 4 in the morning, sitting in the blue light of my laptop, I start searching. Public records are beautiful things when you know where to look. Estate records, property transfers, inheritance declarations, all there, all public, all waiting for someone to care enough to piece them together. What I find makes my hands shake. My grandfather left everything to be split 4 ways. My father, my Aunt Linda, and to be held in trust for my grandchildren, Sarah and Marcus Chen, to be distributed when they reach age 25. I'm 32. Marcus is 30. I search further, my heart pounding, following the paper trail like breadcrumbs. The trust was established. Money was transferred. $150,000 for me, $150,000 for Marcus. To be distributed, to be held, to be given when we needed it most, or when we were old enough to use it wisely. And then, 5 years later, a quiet dissolution, trust terminated, funds transferred back to my father as trustee compensation and administrative fees. A series of small transfers that don't quite add up, that conveniently total $300,000, that coincide almost exactly with the house refinance. They stole our inheritance. Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, carefully, legally enough that they probably thought no one would notice or care. They took the money my grandfather saved for us, for his grandchildren, for the future he wanted us to have. They took it and they bought a pool. They bought marble countertops. They bought a boat, a beautiful 30-footer. You should see it. And when I called, desperate, begging for help to save my daughter from permanent injury, they said no. Because timing was bad, because they just bought a boat, because a limp would teach her responsibility. I sit in the dark, staring at the screen, watching the numbers blur through the tears. I didn't realize I was crying. These aren't sad tears. They're not even angry tears. They're the tears that come when you finally see something clearly after years of looking at it through fog. My parents didn't just refuse to help Lily. They refused to help her with money that was never theirs to begin with, money that should have been mine and Marcus's all along. I think about calling Marcus, waking him up, showing him what I've found, but it's almost dawn, and he has work in 3 hours, and he just sold his tools for us. He doesn't need this weight right now. Instead, I save everything, screenshots, PDFs, links. I create a folder on my desktop and label it with the date, evidence, careful and methodical, because I learned something important from watching my family operate. The person with documentation wins. Then I start calling hospitals again, not for financial aid this time, for payment plans, for options, for any path forward that gets Lily into surgery by Friday. I use Marcus's 800 as leverage, as proof of good faith, as the foundation for a plan that barely works, but works enough. By the time Lily wakes up, I've secured the surgery. Barely. With a payment plan that will take me 5 years to clear and an interest rate that makes me want to cry. but secured. She sits at the kitchen table, eating cereal with her injured leg propped on a chair, and asks, "Did you figure it out?" "Yeah, baby. I figured it out. Are Grandma and Grandpa going to help?" I look at my daughter, at her hopeful face, and I make a decision. No, but Uncle Marcus did. Uncle Marcus doesn't have money. No, I agree, but he has something better. He has love. She thinks about this while she chews her cereal. Grandma said love doesn't pay bills. Grandma says a lot of things. Doesn't make them true. The surgery is scheduled for Friday morning. I take the day off work, unpaid because I've used all my sick time, and I hold Lily's hand while they prep her for the OR. She's scared, but trying not to show it, and I'm terrified, but doing the same, and we're quite a pair, the two of us, pretending to be braver than we are. Marcus shows up just before they take her back. He's still in his work uniform, grease under his fingernails, and he brings Lily a stuffed bear wearing a tiny motorcycle jacket. "For luck," he says, tucking it under her arm. "Bikers always look out for each other." She hugs the bear and hugs him, and when they wheel her away, Marcus and I sit in the surgical waiting room together, not talking, just being present. He falls asleep in his chair after the first hour, head tilted back, snoring softly, and I think about how he sold everything he owned for us, and my parents wouldn't even postpone buying a boat. The surgery takes 3 hours. When the doctor comes out, her face is cautiously optimistic. "We got it. The fracture's realigned, swelling's under control. No nerve damage that we can detect. She'll need physical therapy and probably a cast for 8 weeks, but barring complications, she should have full mobility." I thank her, and I cry, and Marcus wakes up and cries too. And we're both exhausted and relieved and broke, but it doesn't matter because Lily is going to be okay. She is going to walk without pain. She is going to run. And my parents are going to learn what it costs to choose a boat over your grandchild's health. I wait a week. Let Lily come home from the hospital. Let the immediate crisis pass. Let the relief settle into something more sustainable than pure adrenaline. Then I start making calls, first to a lawyer, not about the money, though that's coming, about something else. "I want to file for grandparents' visitation rights termination," I tell him. Or rather, I want to ensure they can never file for rights. I want documentation that they are not to have unsupervised access to my daughter. He's quiet for a moment. "That's unusual unless there's abuse or there's neglect," I say. "Medical neglect. I have documentation that they refused to help with a surgical emergency despite having means. I have text messages, call logs, witnesses. I want it on record that they chose not to help when their granddaughter needed them." That's not typically enough for... I also have evidence that they embezzled money from a trust meant for their grandchildren. My grandfather's trust. I'm not sure if that counts as financial abuse, but it seems relevant. The lawyer's tone shifts. "I'd need to see that documentation." "I'll email it within the hour." Second call is to my Aunt Linda, my father's sister, who I haven't spoken to in years. We were never close, but she was at the will reading. She knows what Grandpa wanted. "Linda," I say when she answers, "I need to ask you about Grandpa's estate." There's a long pause. Then, "I was wondering when you'd figure it out." "You knew." "I suspected. Your father was very insistent on being named trustee for you kids. Said it was his right as your parent, that he knew best how to manage money for your future. I thought it was strange, but..." She trails off. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I should have pushed harder." "Do you have copies of the original trust documents?" "I do. I kept everything from the estate. Call it a bad feeling I couldn't shake. Can you send them to me?" Already scanning them. Third call is to Marcus. This one's harder. "Hey," he answers, sounding tired. It's after his shift, and I can hear the TV in the background. "I found something," I say, "about Mom and Dad, about money." I explain what I discovered. The trust, the transfers, the theft hidden in administrative fees and legal paperwork. I explained that we were supposed to have $150,000 each. Money that would have changed everything: college without debt for me, mechanic school for him, stability neither of us has ever known. He doesn't speak for a long time. When he does, his voice is shaking. They took it. They took Grandpa's money and just spent it on a pool, on vacations, on a boat, and then told you no when you needed $5,000 to save Lily's leg. Yeah. More silence. Then, what do? We take it back, I say. All of it, every penny, with interest. How? Leave that to me. The lawyer I hired is expensive, but he's good and he works fast. Within 2 weeks, we have a lawsuit filed against my parents for breach of fiduciary duty, misappropriation of trust funds, and financial elder abuse, because technically Grandpa's wishes are being violated, which counts. The lawsuit is a matter of public record. I make sure it gets mentioned in the local paper, which loves a good local family drama story. I make sure it shows up when anyone searches my parents. Names. I also make sure that everyone in their social circle knows. Their church group. Their yacht club. Yes, they joined a yacht club for the boat. Their neighbors. Their friends from the wine tasting tours. I don't gossip. I don't embellish. I simply tell the truth. They stole my inheritance and my brother's inheritance, then refused to help when my daughter needed surgery. We're in court now to recover what my grandfather meant for us to have. The response is immediate and brutal. Invitations dry up. Friends stop calling. The yacht club quietly suggests they might be more comfortable at a different marina. My mother's garden club finds another treasurer. My father calls furious. How dare you air our private business like this? How dare you embarrass us? How dare I? My voice is calm. That same eerie calm from the night I called asking for help. You stole $300,000 from your own children. You let your granddaughter face permanent injury rather than postpone buying a boat. And you're worried about embarrassment? It wasn't stealing, it was theft. The lawyers agree, the judge will agree, and everyone you know now knows it too. How does it feel, Dad? How does it feel to have everyone see exactly what you are? He sputters, threatens, tries to justify. I hang up. My mother tries a different approach. She shows up at my apartment with tears and apologies, with explanations about how they were planning to give us the money later, how they were just managing it responsibly, how we're family and family doesn't sue each other. I let her talk. I let her cry. Then I show her the hospital bills, the payment plan, the documentation of every call I made begging for help. You said a limp would teach her responsibility, I remind her. You said she'd manage. You said she always does. I didn't mean. You meant exactly what you said. And now you're managing. You always do, right? She leaves, and I watch her go, and I feel nothing. The love I had for my parents, the hope that they might change, the dream that family meant something beyond shared DNA. It's all gone, burned away in the clarity of their choices. The lawsuit takes 8 months. 8 months of depositions and document reviews, and my parents' lawyer trying to argue that trust administration fees were reasonable, that they acted in good faith, that their adult children don't have standing to complain about decisions made years ago. But the documents don't lie. The transfers don't lie. The boat registration and the pool installation and the cruise receipts all dated within months of the trust dissolution. They don't lie. The judge is a woman in her 60s with grandchildren of her own. She reads the deposition where my mother said a limp would teach Lily responsibility. She reads the evidence of my parents' spending. She reads my grandfather's original trust document with its careful provisions and clear intent. Her ruling is swift and unambiguous. Full restitution of trust funds plus interest, $347,000, split between Marcus and me, plus legal fees, plus a formal apology to be read into the record. My father reads the apology in a monotone, his face red with humiliation. My mother cries. Neither of them looks at us. The money hits our accounts 2 weeks later. Marcus calls me, voice breaking. Sarah, I'm looking at my bank balance, and it says $173,500. Yeah, mine too. I can go to school. I can actually go to mechanic school and not work myself into the ground. You can do whatever you want, I tell him. It's yours. It was always supposed to be yours. I use some of mine to pay off Lily's surgery bills in full. The rest goes into savings, into a college fund for her, into the stability my grandfather wanted his grandchildren to have. I don't buy a boat. I don't renovate anything. I just breathe. Easier knowing that if something happens, if Lily needs something, I can help her. Security isn't about luxury. It's about knowing you can catch your child when she falls. 6 months after the judgment, Marcus comes over for dinner. He's enrolled in mechanic school, part-time while still working, and his eyes look different, lighter, hopeful. Lily shows him her physical therapy exercises, how she can walk without a limp, how she can run almost as fast as before. Uncle Marcus, she says, serious and 9 years old, Mom says you saved me. Your mom saved you, he corrects. I just helped a little. She says you sold your tools. I bought better ones. He grins. Turns out when you invest in good stuff, it comes back to you. After dinner, after Lily's in bed, Marcus and I sit on my porch with coffee and watch the street. It's quiet, peaceful, ordinary in the best way. Do you ever feel bad? He asks. About what we did to them? I think about this, about my parents who had to sell the boat to pay the judgment, who had to refinance their house again, this time to cover legal fees, who lost their social standing, their friends, their comfortable retirement built on stolen money. No, I say honestly, they made their choice. They chose a boat over Lily. They chose luxury over family. They chose themselves over everyone else, again and again and again. I just made sure they had to face the consequences. Quiet revenge, Marcus says, smiling a little. Very you. Not revenge. Justice. There's a difference. What's the difference? I think about Lily, asleep in her room, with her leg healing, straight and strong. I think about Marcus, finally able to pursue his dreams. I think about my grandfather, who worked hard his whole life to leave something good behind for the people he loved. Revenge is about making them hurt, I say. Justice is about making things right. My phone buzzes. A text from my mother. The first in 3 months. Your father's in the hospital. Heart attack? Thought you should know. I read it twice, then put my phone away. You're not going? Marcus asks. No. They're still our parents. Biology isn't loyalty, I tell him. And they taught me that lesson themselves. When Lily needed them most, they said no. They don't get to expect different from us now. He nods slowly. Yeah, okay. We sit in silence for a while, drinking coffee, watching the stars emerge. Somewhere across town, my parents are probably telling their story, painting themselves as victims, talking about ungrateful children and lawsuits and betrayal. They'll never understand that they betrayed us first, betrayed us when we were young and needed them, betrayed us again when I called desperate and afraid. But I understand. I understand perfectly. If you've ever been told that asking for help makes you weak, that needing support means you failed, that family is supposed to be hard, and love is supposed to hurt, I'm here to tell you that's a lie. A limp doesn't teach responsibility. Poverty doesn't build character, and people who love you don't make you beg for mercy when your child is injured. Real family shows up with $800 and empty pockets and oil-stained hands. Real family sells their tools because they need her walking. Real family doesn't count the cost of saving someone they love. 2 years later, I get a letter from my father's lawyer. He's passed away. The heart attack weakened him, led to complications, led eventually to the end. The letter informs me that as his daughter, I'm entitled to a portion of his estate. What's left of it anyway? After the judgment, after the legal fees, after selling the boat and the car and downsizing to a smaller house, there's not much. Maybe $15,000, split between Jessica, Marcus, and me. $5,000. Exactly the amount I asked them for when Lily needed surgery. I cash the check and donate it to the children's hospital that treated Lily. in my grandfather's name, in memory of a man who understood that family means taking care of each other, means showing up, means choosing people over things. The hospital sends me a thank you letter. They're using the donation to help other families who can't afford deposits for emergency surgeries, other mothers who need help, other children who deserve to walk without pain. It feels right, full circle, justice served cold and patient and exactly as deserved. Lily is 11 now, running track. No limp, no pain, no permanent reminder that her grandparents valued a boat over her body. She doesn't remember much about that time, the surgery, the fear, the desperate scramble for money. She remembers Uncle Marcus and his motorcycle jacket bear. She remembers physical therapy and learning to walk again. She doesn't remember my parents at all. When she asks about them, I tell her the truth. They weren't able to be the grandparents you deserved. That's sad, she says. It is, I agree. But you have Uncle Marcus, and you have me, and we have each other. That's enough. At night, when I can't sleep, I still think about that phone call, about my father's voice saying the timing was bad, about my mother saying a limp would teach responsibility, about Jessica laughing and telling me I'd figure it out. I always do. They were right about one thing. I did figure it out. I figured out that family is a verb, not a noun. I figured out that blood means nothing if there is no kindness in it. I figured out that the people who show up when you're broken matter more than the people who show up when you're whole. And I figured out that sometimes the only way to heal is to walk away from the people who keep breaking you. I don't know if that's too far or far enough. I don't know if refusing to visit my father in the hospital was cruel or self-preservation. I don't know if suing my parents was justice or revenge dressed up in legal paperwork. What I know is this. Lily runs without pain. Marcus builds engines and dreams in equal measure. And I sleep at night knowing I protected my child the only way I knew how. By refusing to teach her that love looks like neglect, that family means enduring cruelty, that she should accept less than she deserves. My parents taught me a lot of lessons about money, about status, about keeping up appearances. But the most important lesson came from what they refused to do. They taught me that sometimes the people who should love you most will choose themselves instead. And they taught me that when they do, you document everything, you build your case, and you make sure they face exactly the consequences they've earned. Not with rage, not with drama, not with the kind of explosive confrontation that burns bright and fades fast, but with patience, with evidence, with the quiet, elegant certainty that truth is the sharpest weapon and time is on the side of those who refuse to forget. If someone chose luxury over your child's health, what would you do? If your family took everything you were meant to inherit and told you no when you needed it most, how would you respond? Comment where you're listening from and tell me, too far or far enough, because I sleep well at night, and my daughter runs without pain, and the people who taught me that family is conditional learn that so is forgiveness. Sometimes a limp teaches responsibility, sometimes it teaches cruelty, and sometimes, just sometimes, it teaches you exactly who deserves to be in your life and who was only ever playing the part. My parents played their part, I played mine, and when the curtain fell, we all got exactly what we chose. They chose a boat, I chose my daughter, and I'd make that choice again every single time. Subscribe and share.